Hello and welcome to Daytime, your place for scary stories straight from the horror forums of Reddit. Make sure to like and subscribe for more horror tales of things that go bumping the night. On tonight's episode, a rare item collector wins a valuable antique at an auction that has ties to the spiritual world. So, no matter what you do, please don't finish the 3,000-piece chimeric challenge puzzle.
I'm what's called a set collector. I find and restore sets of vintage auctionables and sell them as complete sets for high-end clients. I originally came out to Lewisburg to put a bid on a near-complete set of original The Phantom comics. The collection was about a dozen short, but none of the missing issues were that rare. It was a slam dunk. It might take some time to get them graded, but if I could find a serious buyer, that wouldn't be a problem. I won the bid and was ready to call it a day when they announced a surprise item. These are always good. A complete 1923 Chimeric Challenger. 3,000-piece puzzle. Holy shit. For those not in the know, the Chimeric Challenger is famously misprinted. They were discontinued because the cutting machine had some kind of malfunction. Some pieces were stuck together and had to be cut with scissors to be assembled. Others were just plain wood, completely missing the print. Some had entire segments missing from the box. It was a commercial failure, specifically because there were seemingly no complete sets. So to have a complete 3,000-piece Chimeric Challenger, their largest and final creation, that's big money. I got it for $2,600. I've seen incomplete sets go for about $8,000, so I could probably get past $15,000 if I could find the right collector. The only problem was that while the previous owner insisted that it was complete, there was no certificate. So I would have to put it together just to verify. Honestly, I was way more excited about the Chimeric Challenger than my Phantom set. It was good money, but this was unique, rare, an actual challenge to put together and put into the hands of the right person. I got back home. I was greeted by my wall of collectibles, amassed from years of digging through countless yard sales and storage units. My crowning achievement was a vintage Mickey Mouse pocket watch placed under a little glass dome, lit with a mild yellow RGB light. The thing wasn't that rare or expensive, but it was special to me. It was the exact watch my mom hadn't been able to afford me for my 6th birthday. It represented everything I'd grown into. Someone who found things. Someone with the confidence and means to get what I want. I pulled a half-nighter finding the missing Phantom issues. By 4 a.m., I'd found all but 2, and those were just standard issues from the 80s. A bit tricky to find a seller, but dirt cheap. I just had to find the right shop, and yet I could barely get any sleep. I was so excited to get started with the Chimeric Challenger. I put out my white cotton gloves, set my alarm for 8, and put a timer on my coffee maker. As soon as that bell rang, I'd shoot out of bed like a boxer ready for round 1. As I closed my eyes that night, a single thought itched to the back of my mind. I didn't have the slightest idea what was printed on the puzzle. After a few hours of twisting and turning, I was finally standing next to the box with a steaming cup of coffee ready to go. I put on my headset and gave my West Coast guy, Lenny, a call. He was usually up at night, chatting with some of his East Asian clients. He picked up on the first signal.
What you got?
"Got," he answered. "You know any puzzle people, Lenny?" I asked. "High-end."
Are we talking Rachel Page stuff, collector shit, curios?
"Curios?" "I sent you a picture." The Chimeric Challenger came in a plain wooden box with a simple company logo on the side. The logo, a sunflower print, had faded to a shade of gray, a far cry from the original azure blue.
You Challenger?
Challenger?
He asked.
How many missing?
Many missing.
Shut up.
Shut up.
No.
No.
"Yeah, and check this out." I sent him another picture. This time of the side of the box, where you could kind of tell the number 3,000 from the remaining print. Again, faded to a gray.
And you're telling me you got a full set? 3,000 pieces?
3,000 pieces.
You got it verified?
You got it verified?
Gonna put it together, I sighed. But yeah, it's a...
You haven't checked it?
You haven't checked it?
Look, you can't throw around complete set before you get it verified. These things are notorious.
These are notorious.
I'm asking you to keep your beady weasel eyes open.
I'll call you a dumbass for not verifying it if that's what you want.
If that's what you want.
serious. This is big league collector stuff. Minnesota.
And if you get it verified, I'll shower you with roses.
You with roses.
Lenny hung up and I got to work. I took pictures of the box in every angle, noting the company address on the bottom right. Tomskog, Minnesota. Original print. I put on my cotton gloves and carefully opened the box. There were 30 identical plastic bags inside, each numbered to contain 100 pieces. Unfortunately, the seal was already broken. That probably set me back a couple of thousands. I photographed everything and opened the first bag. I went through all the pieces slowly and carefully. I double-checked them for bad prints and weak tabs. Putting it together would be the last thing I did. It took me roughly 4 hours to get to the 1,000 piece mark. So far, so good. I hadn't put the pieces together yet, but I saw some rough shades of blue, black, white skin, and a hammer. I got the impression that it was a portrait, possibly of a worker. Maybe a factory worker? I could see something rough and metallic, possibly a printing press. I saw some kind of denim texture. I spent all day checking the rest of the pieces, sending updates to Lenny along the way. The thing was pristine. Not a single wobbly tab or weak print. These pieces had probably never been properly assembled. By 9 p.m., I was completely done. Every piece checked, verified, and returned to their plastic bags. They were all perfect. Well, as perfect as a 100-year-old puzzle could be. Now I just had to put it together to make sure there were no misprints in context. There could be some kind of mix-up that I'd missed. By the end of the night, Lenny told me he had a potential buyer. They were only interested in a complete set, so I had to put it together to make sure. But if it was legit, we were looking at an $18,000 to $19,000 payout, plus commission fees. The next day, I ordered the final issues of The Phantom and got ready to put the puzzle together. I put on an audiobook, uploaded all my pictures from the previous day, and got to work. Now, putting together a 3,000-piece puzzle takes time. If I spent all day working on it, about 12 hours, it'd still take me several days to finish. Probably another day since I had to be careful about the pieces. So I cracked my knuckles, turned off all notifications, and zoned out. Around lunchtime, I'd put together a few edge pieces and a dozen pieces showing a hand holding a hammer. A dirty, labor-roughened hand with black nails and deep blue bruises around the knuckles. I took a short break. I covered the pieces with a cotton cloth and made myself a sandwich. The Phantom collection was basically complete. So I put some feelers out looking for a buyer. I found the final issues and placed an order. Most of the time, my collections don't come to me complete. The Chimeric Challenger was a bit different that way. Usually I had to track down missing pieces or incomplete sets. That was part of the job. Having it served to me like this felt like cheating. As I got back to the puzzle, I got the sense that something was different. I removed the flowery cotton cover, taking in the smell of the old wood. I could have sworn I'd only put 12 pieces together for the arm. And yet, there were 13 connected pieces. Strange. When you solve puzzles, you start with the edges. That was my strategy too, but I couldn't keep myself from assembling whatever random pieces I found along the way. Mostly background pieces showing parts of shelves and metal flooring. Long after the sun had set, I tore myself away from the puzzle. I put the cotton cover back, chugged a Red Bull, and double-checked my socials. I had a lot of missed calls. Missed calls are often missed opportunities. I couldn't afford those, but this had to get done. I spent another few hours rifling through offers, tips, and various rumors. Apparently, there'd been some talk about the Chimeric Challenger. Maybe Lenny asking around stirred something up. I went through every post about it. The consensus was clear. There were no complete Chimeric Challenger sets. A few of them had managed to put together complete sets by combining boxes, but that only worked for the 100 and 500-piece sets. The 3,000-piece sets were all unique, one poster said. That's why they didn't spoil the picture on the box. It was a collector's item. I was just about to click on a link when I heard a sound. It sounded like a click, but it didn't come from my mouse. Instead, I looked over at the covered puzzle. I walked over to it, scratching my eyes. I just stood there, looking at the flowery print of the cotton cover. Had I really heard something, or was it just sleep deprivation? Even if I'd heard something, what made me think it came from the puzzle? But no. I wasn't that person anymore. I was confident. I got what I wanted. I removed the cover and counted the assembled pieces. Edges looked fine. No problem there. But the hand with the hammer? 14 pieces, not 13. I counted, recounted, and recounted again. Had it been 14 all along? I hadn't written 13 anywhere, and I was starting to doubt myself. Puzzles don't assemble themselves. I counted the pieces so many times that the image of that hand holding the hammer burned into my eyes. I wiped the sweat from my brow, reminding myself to put on clean cotton gloves the next day. "It's 14, I said out loud, putting it down on a post-it. "It is 14 pieces. Not 13, it was 14. I covered it back up. That night I slept like a rock. I dreamt about laborers, people with shovels, hammers, saws, and chisels. I dreamt about a hazy workshop full of acidic compounds, people yelling back and forth, a large man with an anchor tattooed on his forearm, a 12-year-old with a bucket, handing out cups of water poured from a hand-carved wooden ladle, the smell of oil, tar, and something sweet, a flour press making a potent dye. The workers all had blue hands, all of them, all except the foreman. He wielded a hammer. Something clicked. I woke up. I'd only been asleep for an hour, but I was shaking and wide awake. I tried going back to sleep, but there was a struggle in the back of my head. Part of me was telling me to stop being an idiot. Part of me wanted to go back to count. It had been 12 pieces. Then it was 13, then 14. It had been 13, I had to stop doubting myself. I cursed out loud and got up. This was the final time. I stomped up to the table, removed the cover, and counted. I didn't even bother to check the edge pieces. 16. There were 2 more pieces assembled, completing the hammer. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the post-it note. It clearly said 14. There was no doubt anymore. There were more pieces assembled now than earlier that night. But what the hell did that mean? I put the cloth back over the puzzle and just watched it. I must have sat there over an hour, nodding in and out of a restless sleep. At one point, I didn't know if I was awake or not. My eyes were open, but I didn't really register anything I was seeing. And there, in that dreamlike moment, I saw something move under the cotton cover, followed by another wooden click. I must have fallen asleep as I woke up hours later, still sitting in my chair. I had some missed calls, a few items that had to be sent, and a few phantom issues to pick up at the post office. And yet, I felt uneasy leaving the chimeric challenger. I tried telling myself I'd imagined it, but I couldn't fool myself. Instead, I put my hand on the cotton cloth and took a deep breath. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to count them. I didn't want there to be more. Just as I steeled myself, my phone rang. Lenny. I breathed a sigh of relief. Saved by the bell.
If this is legit, we're looking at a paycheck. Not table scraps. A fat double quarter-pounder paycheck. I can't find a single person with a complete 3,000-piece set.
Single person with a complete 3,000-piece set.
You telling...
Imagine big brown sacks with dollar signs on them and the satisfaction of proving me wrong, but you gotta verify it.
And of proving me wrong. But you gotta verify it.
Get on it.
You know it. I'll send you a
Big dollar signs like you're a cartoon villain robbing a bank.
Like you're a cartoon villain robbing a bank.
They get to work.
clear picture, Lenny. Thank you.
Get to work.
I looked up at my Mickey Mouse pocket watch. I'd earned it. I'd been sure of myself, and I made it work. This would be no different. It took me about 2 hours to finish up my chores, sent out a couple of surplus items, picked up a few of the Phantom comics, downed a box of gas station sushi, and got back home. I substituted my audiobook for rock and roll and got into the vibe. I didn't even count the pieces, I just started putting them together, sorting them by color, mouthing the words to Detroit Rock City while looking for matching boot pieces. This was work, that's all that mattered. The guy in the picture had his labor, I had mine. I kept taking progress pics to send to Lenny later. This would be another full day. I stopped for a dinner break at about 6 p.m. I heated up some canned ravioli and reviewed the pictures. It was fun just to see how far I'd come. I'd finished the entire frame and started working my way in. I'd gotten a large chunk of metal flooring in, connected to a large segment of background wall. At least 600 pieces, all in all. Then I noticed something. I went back and forth between my pictures. I tried arranging them, putting one over the other, making sure they were the same size. I couldn't get the arm to overlay. All the other pieces were fine, but not the arm with the hammer. It was as if it wasn't in the same angle from one picture to the next, as if it had moved. I looked over at the flowery claw, feeling that icy block of doubt sink back into my stomach. Without all the music, without the bravado, it was just me and this mystery. One by one, I sent the progress pics to Lenny. And as I hit send on the last one,
I got the guy.
Lenny, I started. You gotta...
The guy.
What?
The guy, a client, he's interested.
Okay, sure, but...
No, you don't understand. He's on the other line. He wants to talk.
Now?
You need a second?
Lenny, there's an issue.
Is this gonna keep us from making bank?
I took a deep breath. I wasn't sure I couldn't be. No, I don't think so.
Then you're on in 5.
There was an electronic tone, followed by 2 signals. All of a sudden, Lenny was off the line. There was a stranger on the other end. A stranger with an old, wheezing voice. I sat there, listening to him breathe for a few seconds. Clearly, a smoker.
You got the full set?
He asked. I think so, yeah. Putting it together as we speak.
Don't do that.
There was an urgency. Like he'd waited for just the right time to say it. Preparing himself. It was the clearest thing he'd said so far.
Don't do it.
He repeated.
Tear it apart.
Why would I do that?
Can't you feel it?
I looked back at the flowery cloth. Had it really moved the other night? Had the picture changed? 12 pieces. 13, 14, 16. I hadn't even counted them since. 2 dozen? 3?
They are incomplete by design, by necessity. It shouldn't be complete.
Maybe it isn't.
Make sure of it. Disassemble it, separate the pieces, and never look at it again.
I can't just... I got up from my chair, seeing the setting sun bounce off the glass dome protecting the Mickey Mouse pocket watch. I wanted this, and I was going to get it. If you want to take it off my hands, I'm sure Lenny will get you a fair price, I sighed. But if you excuse me, I got work to do.
Don't do this.
I hung up, and for the rest of the night, I didn't bother counting. I called it a day just past midnight. I face-planted into bed, leaving the playlist rolling. I'd just catch a few hours of sleep, then get back to it. I wasn't going to drag this out. This was business, and I was going to handle it. But I couldn't help myself from dreaming. Maybe the fumes from the box got to me. Maybe it was just a different, intrusive headspace. Either way, I imagined myself back in that hazy workshop. I imagined myself waking up. A man with blue hands shaking my shoulder. Our lunch break was over, and I was slacking off. I had this mind-numbing task of putting the same varnish on wooden boxes over and over and over. The smell was so strong that I couldn't even feel it anymore. There was a noise further down the hall. A hammer coming down again and again. Screams, pleading, flesh. We knew better than to stop. You didn't quit this job. No one did. I woke up to a sudden clatter, something falling onto the floor. My eyes shot open. There were puzzle pieces scattered across the carpet. And a bloody hammer. Specks of blood covered the flowery cotton cover. The hammer just lay there on the floor, clear as day. A few puzzle pieces had fallen off the table. I picked up the hammer, feeling the weight of it in my hand. A sticky handle covered in loose strands of hair. I pulled the cotton cover aside. The chimeric challenger was almost complete. The puzzle revealed a man in denim overalls, covered in cuts, bruises, and scars. The only thing missing was his head, that hadn't been put together yet. He didn't have a hammer in his hand anymore. He did, however, have colored hands. But they weren't blue like the workers I'd dreamt of. They were blood red. I'd forgotten to turn notifications back on. I had hundreds. Row after row of texts from the same number, over and over. All of them telling me to please destroy the puzzle. Burn it. Throw it away. Tear the pieces apart and just walk away. Missed calls. Offers to pay me to get rid of it. Calls from Lenny. Calls from unknown numbers. Pleading, desperate messages. The last message was sent just minutes before I woke up, asking me to please save his life. For his children's sake. For his grandchildren. And finally, an email from Lenny. No wonder he wants it that bad, Lenny wrote. He's a Tomskog native. His dad probably helped make the thing. My pulse raced. I held the bloody hammer in my hand. This was real. This wasn't a trick of the mind. There were only about 40 pieces left to assemble. No one quits the job. Enough. I picked it all up and showed it into the box, abandoning all care and common sense. I showed it all in there, bending the tabs and snapping the corners. I saw the pieces bend and break, hearing the wood snap. I forced the lid shut, put it under my arm, and left. I was going to burn it in the yard, but it was snowing outside. I decided to throw it off a bridge instead. There's this bridge not too far from where I live where the water never really freezes. I drove up there, parked, and got out. I brought the hammer. I put the puzzle down and just started smashing it with the hammer. I watched a flock of red birds take flight, frightened by the sudden noise. Finally, I heaved it all over the edge, watching the broken wooden pieces plop into the river. As the pieces sailed into the rushing water, I felt this immense sense of relief. And with that, I dropped the hammer into the river as well. The color from the broken puzzle pieces had given my hands a faint sheen of blue. I used some snow to scrub it off. I texted Lenny, telling him the puzzle was incomplete. I didn't even bother to check his response. I'd wasted so much time and money on this, but I still felt like I'd dodged a bullet, like I'd been on the cusp of something terrible. I headed home. I spent the rest of the day trying to find a buyer for the Phantom collection. I'd gained the attention of a few big names. Apparently, the rumor of me having a chimeric challenger had also gotten out. There were quite a few messages about it. I made up a copy-paste response to get rid of them. I tried my best just to get back to work, ignoring the puzzle and everything about it. I didn't want to know what had happened. I didn't want to think about it. And yet, I could still see some blue powder under my fingernails. That night, just before bed, I scrubbed myself clean. But no matter how hard I scrubbed my hands, I could still see little blue stains on my skin. Maybe it wasn't really there. That night, I could barely sleep at all. I fell in and out of consciousness, as if my body was keeping me awake. And still, I caught some snippets of another life. A life that also had blue powder on its hands at one point. I imagined people putting down their tools. Someone getting beaten to death for insubordination. The 12-year-old boy putting down his bucket of water. Finally, a hammer raised even at him. Then, a gunshot. My eyes were wide open. I sat up, letting my legs fall off the edge of the bed. I dug my toes into the carpet. I tried to calm down, to let myself rest. Then I felt something brush against my toe. Something at the edge of the carpet. A puzzle piece. It must have bounced off when the pieces fell off the table. It depicted the top of a bald man's head, with a gunshot wound in the forehead. The eyes in the puzzle piece turned to me, meeting my gaze. Glass shattered. Footsteps. I hurried into my closet, hiding behind my collection of robes. I heard uneven footsteps fumble their way inside. Water dripping onto the hardwood floor in the hallway. Something metallic brushing against the wall. It was dark, but I could see the outline of it as it stepped into my bedroom. A body, broken. A man with every bone twisted by hammer blows. A wheezing, rattling breath from a vibrating tongue. The top of his head was missing. The man from the puzzle. The chimeric challenger. I held his puzzle piece in my hand. He used his hammer as a cane for the blind, feeling his way forward, brushing it against the walls. As soon as he found the bed where I'd slept, he lost his composure. He made this unearthly sound, ripping the covers and pillows into pieces, waving the hammer around with his broken limbs. He could barely stand on his ruined legs. Every step, every swing was agony. I could hear the rage and frustration bubbling up from his exposed throat, the hammer bringing down paintings, pictures, shelves, and my priceless collectible. All of a sudden, the doors to the closet were ripped from the hinges, broken fingers wrapped around my throat. I held up the final puzzle piece like a shield, hoping it would all just go away. "Take it!" I screamed. "Just fucking take it!" But there was no discussion, no thought. He just started beating me to death with that goddamn hammer. That first blow connected with my jaw, breaking it. The second hit fractured my right upper arm. It was so fast that I didn't even understand what was happening. The third hit connected with my shoulder. I didn't even realize I dropped the puzzle piece. The dark turned red, and for a moment I could feel the texture of metal flooring against my cheek. I could see the haze of the workshop. I'd tried to quit. The foreman wasn't having it. Fingers grabbing the roots of my hair, more hammer blows, my forehead burning, my head ringing, my world started spinning as my inner ear gave up. Another blow, another. I tried pleading for help, but I couldn't form words through my broken jaw. Instead, I just lay there, wheezing, just like the foreman. All of a sudden, it stopped. A hammer clattered to the ground. I saw the glass dome with my Mickey Mouse pocket watch. It was still intact, resting on my bed. I wanted this. I wanted to live. I grabbed the hammer, flipped it, and used it to drag myself across the floor. I kept losing my grip from the bleeding. But I made it. Months of physical therapy. Dozens of surgeries. And I still can't lift my arm over my head. When I stretch one way, I can feel this deep ache still lingering in my jaw. Turns out he accidentally smashed the final puzzle piece when he tried to beat me to death. I guess in a strange way, he destroyed himself. Now, I still see people looking to complete sets of the Chimeric Challenge puzzles. There are 8 auctions for various pieces going on right now. Some for 300 pieces, one looking to complete a set for a 1,000-piece puzzle. And that's why I'm asking that we please, as a community, never talk of these again.
Hello and welcome to Daytime, your place for scary stories, straight from the horror forums of Reddit. Make sure to like and subscribe for more horror tales of things that go bumping the night. On tonight's episode, a young woman must escape from a maniac when she is abducted on her birthday. So, what would you wish for if it was your birthday? Because I wish I wasn't, trapped inside the birthday box.
I got a Game Boy for my 6th birthday. It was wrapped in a nice little white box with a red ribbon. It was from my out-of-state uncle, the only person who always got me something. My mother hadn't gotten me anything, but she told me we had some batteries out in the car trunk that I could use. Given how Game Boys chew through batteries, I figured I might as well stock up. So I got my Game Boy, crawled into the trunk of the car, and started looking for batteries. I found a whole bunch of them. Some used, some not. I ended up cozying up next to an old sleeping bag and playing my game right then and there. There was this strangely comforting smell of gasoline and freshly cut grass that lulled me into a gleeful comfort. I didn't want to be in the house anyway. It could get so dreary watching my mom sit by the kitchen table doing nothing. She was rarely, if ever, responsive. As I felt a few raindrops on my bare knees, I realized there were clouds brewing above. So I shut myself in the trunk, listening to the rain and playing my game. I had one of those flashlight extensions, so I could stay there forever. Except I couldn't. I hadn't realized that car trunks lock themselves when shut. I was stuck in there, and my mom wasn't helping me anytime soon. We lived in a small home in an isolated part of town, where most other houses were either abandoned or far off, so no one could hear me scream. Eventually, the batteries ran dry, even the backups. And as the cheerful Wario Land theme music died, it was just me, stuck in the dark, flailing helplessly to get out. It took 18 hours before someone passing by could hear me. When I was finally let out, CPS took me away and placed me with my uncle. My mother, who was diagnosed with clinical apathy, has never really been a part of my life since. So as you can imagine, I have a bit of a complicated past when it comes to confined spaces and birthdays. But I still consider myself having a happy childhood. My uncle was amazing, and he cared for me more than my mother ever did. I did well in school, I made many friends, and I did well as a point guard on the high school basketball team. You don't have to be tall to be a good point guard. I moved up to Morgantown and got my master's in business administration from John Chambers College. Ever since, I've been working hard and staying out of trouble. I've made myself quite comfortable. Still don't celebrate my birthday, though. That brings up a lot of emotions. A few years ago, I got a letter informing me that my mother had passed. I was asked to come back home to Juniper to collect her things and sign the papers in person. So, one late September afternoon, I took a trip down memory lane to say goodbye to that chapter of my childhood, once and for all. But something didn't feel right. When I arrived later in the day, the house was in shambles. It had been abandoned for years. And there was no one there to greet me. It was just me, standing in an overgrown yard listening to the crickets waking up. A one-story home with every window broken, where the white paint had peeled so much it looked like the yard was covered in dandruff. Then, someone put a bag over my head. It all went black. When I woke up, I was in immediate discomfort. My muscles ached and my back was arched in an awkward fetal position. I had this terrible urge to stretch and straighten out, but I couldn't. I was confined. I could barely move. All I could feel was rough-hewn wood, and all I could smell was vinegar and dirt. It was so strong it made my eyes tear up. I didn't understand what was going on. I fought, twisted, pushed, and screamed. Neither the walls, the ceiling, or the floor gave an inch. I got splinters all over my arms and legs. It was so oppressively dark that I couldn't even see my hands. It was also getting warmer, and I didn't even realize I was hyperventilating until I heard my own breathing. I could feel the salt of my sweat dripping into my eyes and my clothes sticking to my skin, like wearing a nylon shirt in the rain. There were these wildly irrational, panicked thoughts that came to me all at once. But the first and foremost was the feeling that maybe I never got out of that car trunk all those years ago. Maybe all of this had been a hallucination. Maybe I was still that 6-year-old kid, trying to find my way out, dreaming of the world outside. Hell, maybe my Game Boy was still around. I snapped to attention. There were footsteps and they were coming closer. There was an echo. I was somewhere enclosed and spacious. Someone outside was walking on concrete.
Have I got a treat for you, birthday girl?
Rasped a whiskey-torn old voice.
Have I got a treat for you?
A man, possibly middle-aged, maybe older. I seized up as I slowly came to realize I'd been abducted. I couldn't think of a reason for someone to lock me in an actual box other than some terrible, nefarious purpose. 1,000 troubling thoughts passed through my mind at once. Everything from being sold to tortured. I held my breath.
I'm sure you'll enjoy this.
He continued.
I'm sure you will be pleased.
I don't know what I was thinking. I started hitting the walls, screaming to be let out. I screamed and begged and threatened and cried, and I was getting so frustrated I couldn't even hear him responding. The tears wouldn't stop. Finally, there was a loud bang. A hammer coming down on the box and something piercing my skin. He'd hammered a nail in to make a point, and it had been close enough to scrape my knee.
Don't be so emotional,
Said the man.
It would make things easier if you weren't so emotional.
I quieted down, but I couldn't slow my breathing. There wasn't enough air in the world to fill my lungs, it seemed. The man outside waited patiently, then left the room with a jaunty whistling.
Beautiful birthday girl.
He said as he left the room.
Beautiful, perfect birthday girl.
There was a loud chunk as a metal door slid shut. I thought back on that day where I'd been locked in that trunk. I thought about the smells and sensations. Gasoline and fresh-cut grass. Now there was vinegar and musty wood. A bit of mold, perhaps. Wherever I was, it was old. I decided I needed to take control. There would be no one passing by to help me this time. I had to be proactive, even if everything in me screamed to just curl up into a ball and weep. I had to do something. I forced myself to map everything in my immediate environment, to figure out if there was something I could use. I slowed my breathing and carefully ran my hands across the surface of the box. I calculated that it was about 3 feet across and an almost perfect square. There was a slight gap in between some of the planks, but there was another layer of wood outside. It also seemed like the entire box had some sort of fabric wrapped around it, as I couldn't hear wood scraping whenever I shifted the box. It was a smooth fabric. Cotton, maybe? I also realized that I'd been out cold for at least 12 hours. My birthday had been a day off, so if he was congratulating me, I must have been out long enough for midnight to pass. You can get pretty far in 12 hours, so there was no way for me to know how far he'd taken me. My fingers brushed against something smooth. My Game Boy? No. My cell phone. I came to realize that I still had all my belongings. My car keys, my cell phone, my jacket. I took off my jacket and propped it up to relieve my back a bit. Then I got my cell phone out. The brightness blinded me. It took me several minutes just to adjust my eyes, and even then they were still getting watery. I wiped them over and over until I could finally see something. The battery was at about 34%. Not great, but serviceable. I dialed the emergency services immediately, but I couldn't get through. There was no signal, no internet connection. We were off the grid. Way off the grid. Maybe underground? I tried lying on my back to kick the wall out, but I just couldn't get enough momentum. The planks were rough, but I couldn't get them to buckle. The only side I wasn't entirely sure of was the floor. I tried standing and pushing myself upwards, but nothing moved. I closed my phone to save on battery and kept exploring the rigidity of the box. I was at it for more than an hour, just pushing myself against the planks. Still, nothing budged, but I refused to stop trying. I took a breather when I suddenly heard the door open again. It was pretty far off, and I could hear echoing footsteps coming my way. Someone coughing, clearing their throat. It sounded like he was smoking.
All right, birthday girl.
He sighed.
Time to get started.
There was a loud banging again, but not on my box. And something nearby, another wooden surface. Something across from me. Another box?
Let me know when you're ready.
He continued.
I'm right outside.
Ready for what? I yelled back. What are you talking about? There was no response. Instead, he just walked away, closing the large door behind him. Moments later, there was a scream. A young woman. It was muffled, but clear and close by. I shifted around in my box to come closer, only to realize our boxes were literally next to one another. There were two of us. Hello? I called out. Hello, who are you?
What's going on?
She called back.
Who are you?
We're trapped, I said. We're both trapped. I tried to explain to her what I knew. I had her confirm everything on her end, that she was also in a box, roughly 3 feet across, that she also had a phone, but no service or internet connection. We smelled the same things, saw the same things, and had both been taken suddenly and in the last 24 hours. I got so wrapped up in it that I barely remembered to ask anything about her as a person. Finally, she learned my name, and I came to know her as Lorette, or Lori for short. He came in to talk to me a couple of times. I sighed. He keeps calling me birthday girl.
Maybe he was, talking to me?
Said Lori.
It's my birthday.
Mine too, I said. That can't be a coincidence. It was eerie, but it didn't explain anything. We tried to find more commonalities. I was 28 at the time. Lori was 21. We were both women, but we had wildly different backgrounds. She had a family with 3 sisters and 2 brothers. I'd been alone with my uncle. She went to public school. I'd had a private tutor. My hair was black. Hers was brown. My eyes were brown. Hers were green. We had basically nothing in common except for our birthday. And it didn't lead us anywhere. We stayed in there for hours. At first, I'd felt that tinge of hope, knowing someone might help me, that we could help each other. But now it was growing increasingly clear that this just meant we were stuck together. 2 victims, rather than 1. Lori wasn't about to give up. While I'd resigned myself to preserving my energy, she was still in denial. She was kicking, punching, and pushing against the planks, hoping something would give way. Of course it didn't. But she stopped for a second.
There's something in the cracks.
She said.
Some, insulation. I got short nails. I can't.
I brought out my phone and checked. And yes, looking into the spaces between the planks, I could see some kind of white insulation. A piece of it was poking out just far enough for me to reach it. I pulled out strips from a towel, drenched in some sort of vinegar. I conveyed the information to Lori, who tried to make sense of it.
Maybe he's, covering up the smell?
she said.
If we die in here, vinegar can soak some of that up.
So we're in for the long haul. Days, maybe weeks.
Oh my God.
Lori started weeping. I could hear her rocking back and forth, her box shifting slightly. But there was another sound as she did. A rumbling. A deep, dark rumbling. I wrapped my jacket around me like a blanket. It was getting cold, and I had to preserve my energy. You get exhausted quicker in the cold. At some point, Lori and I were just leaning against our boxes back to back, talking about whatever came to mind. Whatever made us remember that we were in this together, and that we weren't alone. The man hadn't come back for several hours, but it might as well have been days. I talked about my uncle, my job, my mother, anything that crossed my thoughts. Lori told me about her cats, and how she was saving up for a college degree. We were just thinking out loud. And when the words ran dry, we fell quiet. I felt like I'd known her all my life.
There's no water.
Lori sighed.
Without water, we won't last long. I'm already thirsty.
Try not to think about it, I said. Try to think of something else. Like an itch.
Great. Now I'm itchy and thirsty.
She got a laugh out of me. An honest-to-God laugh. Suddenly, the door opened. Our laughter died, and the footsteps came closer. I heard a deep inhale, followed by a ripe cough. Definitely a smoker. He stopped just ahead of us, saying nothing. I decided to just wait and listen. There could be something out there. A hint.
You're not feeling up to it, birthday girl. You're not enjoying your present.
The raspy voice asked.
I'm sorry. I'll do better next time.
Lori couldn't help herself. I could hear her shifting in her box. I don't want anything from you. I want nothing, and you have to release me. I could hear the man turn around. I got the impression that he'd been facing away from us. Strange.
Excuse me.
He said, his voice shifting.
I wasn't talking to you.
Then listen to me, I said. She's right. You have to let us out. There was a loud bang against the side of the box. He kept hammering at it over and over again. Despite several layers of planks and insulation, the sound was deafening. I covered my ears, closed my eyes, and waited for it to be over. Seconds later, he was done. I could hear him panting and coughing.
Shut up!
He yelled.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut your pretty mouths when I'm talking to her!
A chill crawled up my spine. If he wasn't talking to either of us, there was someone else in the room. I could hear a groaning noise, like metal being bent from pressure. Then a thump. A big, fat footstep slapping against concrete. I held my breath, trying to paint a picture in my mind. I couldn't make anything of it. I'd never heard anything like it.
There we go, birthday girl.
The man said.
There we go. Nice and easy.
I could feel the pressure shift as something large came down, slamming into the box next to me. Something large that moved with great effort. But as Lori started screaming, it seemed to pick up speed. It got angry. Or excited. I could hear creaking wood and snapping nails as Lori's box was being torn open plank by plank. And the more she screamed, the angrier it seemed to get. The air shifted as her screams were flung high into the air. Both she and the box were hoisted at least 15, maybe 20 feet up. Her screams turned shrill as they bounced off the concrete walls. Planks breaking, fabrics torn. And now I could hear her terrified shriek as clear as day. She was out of the box. And whatever was on the other side made her cry like a cornered animal. There was a loud crunch, like massive teeth biting into a ripe apple. And Lori fell silent. I sat there, shaking. I tried not to breathe or imagine what was happening outside. I tried my best to be anywhere else. And for the first time in my life, I wished and begged to be back in the trunk of that car, playing my Game Boy. I could hear things falling against the concrete. Planks, nails, and something wet. Chunks.
There, birthday girl.
He shushed.
Aren't you gonna open your other gift?
Another groaning noise. More chunks falling from above. Bones breaking, splashes of liquid.
All right, I'll be back in a bit. Love you, birthday girl.
There was a kissing noise, followed by footsteps. Wet footsteps. And he whistled a jaunty tune all the way out the door. I had 3 minds inside my head at that moment. One mind wanted to scream and bash myself bloody against the walls. Another mind wanted to curl into a ball and cry. But in the back of my thoughts, there was a little mind left. It had grown there for years, festering from a wound back from when I was locked in that trunk as a kid. And that third mind was telling me to listen. It was telling me that no one was coming to save me. And it was telling me I had to keep trying. So I listened. There were still little things falling from above. But what I was just now realizing was that the floor seemed further down. There was either a hole next to me, or my box was elevated. I T-ried, shifting back and forth. The box barely moved. I decided on a direction and kept shifting that way, inch by inch, throwing myself against the side of the box. Finally, there was a stop. Some kind of threshold. That first mind was screaming at me to panic, to kick and scream. That other mind was telling me to give up. But that third mind just kept telling me to stay calm and to try. It could be a short drop that would just put me on the floor and change nothing. It could be a long drop, killing me. Or maybe something I couldn't even imagine. So I threw myself against the threshold. And I threw myself at it again. And again. This time the trunk would pop open. It had to. There was a slight shift as I felt the box clear the threshold. And as I pushed further, I could feel that there was no more ground to support me. The further I pushed, the more it gave way. I was balancing on an edge. I could feel it. I could lean back, staying upright. Or I could push forward and tip myself off a cliff. And while 2 voices were screaming at me to wait, it was that third voice that came through the loudest. And it was telling me to fall off that damn cliff. So I fell. The world turned on its head, and I felt my stomach rise to my throat. It all came to a stop with a violent crash, and I could feel the dimensions of the box shift. It was no longer a perfect square. Something was broken. I could feel one of the walls giving way. I started kicking. I kicked and kicked and kicked. Either my legs would give or the wall. And the way the planks were bending, I was betting it all on my legs holding for just a little longer. And suddenly there was a gap. Just a few inches, but I could see outside. I brought out my phone and used what little battery I had left to turn on the flashlight. I could see a concrete floor with splotches of blood. Further in, there was a chunk of flesh, or possibly skin. Broken planks littered the ground. With the wall of the box broken, the vinegar-soaked insulation gave way. There was a stench of blood so powerful I could taste the iron on my tongue. Moist, warm flesh. I tried not to think about it. I kept kicking. And as I did, the door opened again.
Was that you, birthday girl?
A voice called out.
Did you open your...
The footsteps stopped. Then he started running.
No!
He complained.
No, 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 no!
I kept kicking, and with one final push, the entire side of the box fell away. I could only see parts of him. He had a flashlight, but I couldn't see what he pointed it at. It was like looking at him through a wooden frame. A man in his 50s, malnourished, with sunken eyes and thinning hair hidden under a green baseball cap. But he didn't look at me. He looked at something in the center of the room. Something big and groaning.
I didn't open your present,
He said.
It broke. I'll get you another one.
There was a loud puff, like an exhale. The man shook his head and carefully stepped forward. He held his hands open in surrender.
I love you, birthday girl. I love you. It's your favorite, I made sure. They have that date you like.
He moved out of sight. There was a thump as something came down next to him. Something wet that stretched across the floor. Something pulsating, throbbing.
You want me to put the present in a new box?
He asked.
You want something else? Roast chicken? Sunflower seeds? I know you love the blue ones.
There was a sudden shift as something large moved. I could hear him fall to the floor, bowled over like a pigeon hit by a truck. There was a newfound fear in his voice. His flashlight disappeared, turning the room as dark as a grave.
Honey,
He wheezed.
I'll get you a new one. You'll get a new present. I'll...
Another thump, followed by a piercing shriek. Whatever was out there was making itself busy with my assailant. This was my chance. I crawled out of the box. I almost slipped on the blood, but I managed to steady myself. I didn't turn to look. I didn't do anything but to listen to all the little voices in my head, now in complete unison. Run. He begged her to stop. He screamed and pleaded, but nothing changed. I heard bones snapping and tendons tear. The sound of those big teeth biting into a ripe apple. And as his panic gave way to maddening acceptance, he started laughing. He laughed like I'd never heard anyone laugh before.
This day will be all yours but birthday girl. No one else can have your birthday. No one else. No one!
But I didn't stop, and I didn't look. And as his laughter came to a crunching stop, I burst through the metal door. I scrambled up a spiral staircase, and as I collapsed into an old abandoned tobacco field, I made a 911 call so frantic I can't remember a word of what I said. As my phone finally died, I was left on my own. Only a single voice remained, whispering gently into the back of my mind. I made it. I made it out of the trunk. Well, that was a few years ago. I was the third kidnapping victim of this man, and I was the only one who made it out. You might have read about it. It wasn't too far from Greenbrier Valley. It was a big deal for about a week. I'm bringing this up now because the investigation has been in a standstill for years. They've determined that he acted alone and that he worked as a consultant at a local law office. He had access to a lot of confidential information. That's how he picked his victims. The first victim, which I never met, also shared our birthday. There's a lot of strange things going on surrounding this. They worked on the initial report for days, but when it was finalized, it barely said anything but nothing to report. Strange how it can take days of investigation to come to that conclusion, especially considering what they must have seen when they first entered that old storage cellar. The case is officially closed, but I know there's more to it. But for now, I'm just happy to be out of the trunk. For good.